Everyone was clapping, smiling, and raising glasses, until my sister slapped me across the face, not in private, not behind closed doors, but in front of 200 people at her fairy tale wedding, and the worst part, they all laughed. That single moment, her palm crashing into my cheek, felt like the summary of my entire life. A celebration turned into humiliation, success turned into shame, and family, well, family turned into enemies dressed in tuxedos and gowns. I'm Vivien, a 32-year-old woman who has worked every day, every hour, to build a life from nothing. While some people chase love, I chased independence. While others relied on luck or handouts, I built my fortune, my practice, and my reputation from sweat, blood, and sleepless nights. But none of that mattered to them, because at her wedding, my parents told me I had to give it all away. They didn't ask. They demanded. They said my success was selfish, my penthouse was excess, and their new family deserved everything I had earned. And when I refused, they cheered as Sabrina slapped me. That night, they expected me to collapse. To surrender. To apologize. Instead, I chose something else, something they never saw coming. So here's the question. What happens when the disappointment in the family finally fights back? You'll find out by the end. The ballroom glistened under the crystal chandeliers of the Ritz-Carlton. White roses cascaded from golden vases. A soft quartet played. In the background, guests sipped champagne, and everyone admired Sabrina, the perfect bride, the center of attention, the one who always deserved it all. Her designer gown floated behind her like royalty, her laugh rehearsed, her smile polished. I stood near the back with a champagne flute in hand, trying to stay invisible. The air felt thick. It wasn't just the extravagance, it was the tension. The knowing glances from my parents, the way they moved toward me with purpose. And then it came. Vivien, darling, you look absolutely radiant. My mother, Diane, beamed, all teeth and practiced warmth. The moment I heard that voice, my stomach dropped. She only used that tone when something terrible was coming. And this was her performance: silver hair styled to perfection, expensive perfume clouding the air, navy blue dress clinging like royalty. We need a little family chat, she said. With a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mom, it's Sabrina's wedding day, I replied. Can whatever this is wait? No, came a deeper voice. My father, Robert, stood beside her. Tall, stiff, intimidating. He still looked like the man who had terrified my childhood, always disappointed, never proud. We've been talking about your living situation, he said flatly. I blinked, caught off guard. My living situation? That was the beginning. Champagne in one hand, heart pounding in the other, I listened. You know, Sabrina and Derek are starting a family, Mom began again. They're going to need more space, Dad added. Derek's current apartment isn't suitable. It's time to think practically. I frowned. They're not even pregnant. But they will be soon, Sabrina chimed in, her arm looped around Derek like a trophy. She joined the conversation. Like a queen entering court, confident, smug. We're planning to start trying right away, she added, smiling with fake modesty. Congratulations, I muttered. I'm sure you'll find a lovely place. We already have, she said brightly. We want your penthouse. Silence. My champagne flute trembled. I had to steady it before it slipped from my fingers. You what? We want your penthouse. She repeated, like it was as casual as borrowing a jacket. Vivien, don't get defensive, Dad jumped in, playing reasonable. You're a single woman. You don't need all that space. My mouth went dry. I could barely breathe. You want me to give up my home? My penthouse? The one I earned? Not give up, Mom corrected quickly, as if that made it better. Trade. You could move into Derek's apartment. It's perfect for one person. A 600-square-foot studio in Queens, I said bluntly. You want me to trade my 3-bedroom penthouse on the Upper West Side for a shoebox? Vivien, don't be so dramatic, Sabrina said, rolling her eyes. You don't even use all that space. You don't have a boyfriend. What do you need it for? That stung. She knew it would. And I saw that glint in her eyes, the same one she always had when she knew she'd landed a blow. I tried to stay calm. I need that space because it's my home. I earned it. I paid for it. And I'm not giving it up. Vivien Elizabeth Morrison, Mom hissed, suddenly sharp. That is incredibly selfish. Family comes first. I laughed bitterly. Have any of you ever treated me like family? And then it began. You've always been jealous of me, Sabrina snapped, stepping closer. It was like watching a fuse spark its way to a stick of dynamite. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes wild, and despite the glittering wedding dress and soft lighting, she looked monstrous. Her voice was sharper than the sound of clinking glasses, and everyone nearby turned to listen. You can't stand that I'm getting married. That I'll have the family you'll never have. I felt it. That familiar ache, the one that tried to make me question my worth. But not tonight. I'm not jealous of you, Sabrina, I said, my voice calm. But firm. I'm disappointed in you. She laughed. A cold, cruel laugh. Disappointed? I'm the one getting married. I'm the one who'll give mom and dad grandkids. What have you done, besides make money? I've built a life, I replied. One I never asked you to support. I earned every part of it. I've never taken a thing from you. That's when Dad cut in, voice like a judge delivering a sentence. Well, now we're asking. Your sister needs that penthouse more than you do. Robert Morrison. The man who hadn't once congratulated me when I started my firm. Now, he was the one demanding a piece of it, Mom added, her voice rising. Selfish children don't deserve success. It hit like a slap, even before the actual one came. You've had everything handed to you, she continued. And now you won't even help your sister. Handed to me? I scoffed. I worked 3 jobs in law school. I lived on ramen noodles. I built my practice from the ground up. Dad's voice boomed across the ballroom. Your sisters. Children need real homes, not some cramped apartment. They're not even conceived yet. I snapped, but logic had long since left this conversation. Sabrina stepped forward, her voice lowered, venom dripping from every word. You know what, Vivien? I'm done pretending. I've always been the better daughter. I'm prettier. I'm more likable. I'm the one who makes mom and dad proud. And now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. I stared into her eyes. What do you always deserve, Sabrina? And what exactly is that? Everything, she hissed. The penthouse. The respect. The life you've been hoarding for yourself. I deserve it all. And I'm finally going to get it. Over my dead, slap, the impact was so fast, so loud, it echoed through the ballroom like a whip crack. My face jerked to the side. For a moment, everything stopped, then came the gasps. The murmurs. And worse, the laughter. It began with Sabrina's smug bridesmaids, those women who always saw me as uptight, unlovable, too career-focused, to be real. Then the laughter spread to strangers. Guests I'd never met pointing and whispering, she actually slapped her. About time someone put Vivien in her place. She always thought she was better than the rest of us. My cheek burned. My ears rang. But I did not cry. Sabrina stood with a smirk. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister. Behind her, Mom and Dad said nothing. They just stared. Waiting to see if I would break. Waiting for me to give. That's when I understood, this wasn't just about a penthouse. This was a message: you don't matter, Vivien. Not to them. Not unless I gave them something they wanted, but they forgot something important. I wasn't the same little girl begging for approval anymore. They had humiliated me in front of 200 people, and they weren't ready for what I would do next. My face still stung, but I refused to flinch. Sabrina, standing proud in her ivory gown, expected tears. My parents expected surrender. The guests expected a spectacle, maybe me running out in shame. Instead, I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and started typing. What are you doing, Vivien? Mom asked, voice uneasy. Typing. Calmly. Silently, not crying. Not screaming. Just typing. The laughter in the ballroom began to taper off as people noticed my reaction was different. Vivien, put that away, Dad ordered, lowering his voice to a growl. You're embarrassing yourself. I didn't even look up. No, I replied flatly, fingers still moving. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed. Sabrina's heels clicked sharply against the floor as she stormed toward me. Give me that. I stepped aside and hit send. She froze, her fingertips hovered inches from the phone. What did you do? She hissed out. I looked her dead in the eye, then turned to face my parents, the crowd, the silent orchestra, and the 200 people who had witnessed my public humiliation. I chose the revenge that will silence you forever. Gasps scattered through the air. Confusion swept across faces like a slow-moving wave. My phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Then a flood of notifications. Buzz. Buzz. Buzz, what did you send? Mom asked, her voice pitching into panic. I smiled. I sent a message. To my group chat. The one with all my law school friends. The journalists I've worked with. The business partners who respect me. The people who matter in this city. Sabrina's face lost its color. What kind of message? Just a little update, I said sweetly. How my family demanded I give up my penthouse. How my mother screamed that selfish children don't deserve success. How my father said hypothetical grandkids needed my home more than I do. How my sister slapped me in front of 200 people because I wouldn't hand over my life's work. The room was dead silent now. Not even the clinking of silverware. I turned the screen toward the crowd, already full of replies. Messages of outrage. Sympathy. Shock. Even 2 missed calls from recognizable names. You're vindictive. Sabrina exploded, but her voice cracked halfway through. No, Sabrina, I said. I'm just done being your doormat. Derek, her new husband, finally broke his silence. Vivien, maybe we can work something out. This got out of hand. I looked at him. Pityingly, you married into the wrong family, Derek. You have no idea what you've signed up for. What do you mean? He asked, confused. Judge Margaret Chen was here tonight, I said, holding up my phone. She saw everything. She's already texted me to express her disgust. Sabrina looked like she might vomit, and David Rodriguez from the Times? He was watching, too. He's been trying to get a quote from me for a week. Guess what he wants now? You're going to ruin everything, Mom whispered, her voice brittle. No, I said. You ruined everything the second you decided I wasn't part of this family unless I handed over my success. I'm just letting the world know what you did. Then came the moment. If you've ever stood up to someone who tried to tear you down, if you've ever been the outsider in your own family, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power, because sometimes the truth is the loudest revenge. Back in the ballroom, the whispers had changed. People weren't pointing at me anymore, they were pointing at Sabrina. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. The wedding wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a scene, and I had just flipped the script. Sabrina's confident smirk was gone, her shoulders slumped slightly, lips trembling, mascara clumping near the corners of her eyes. She looked less like a bride and more like a crumbling statue, one crack away from falling apart entirely. Derek leaned in, trying to whisper something in her ear, but she jerked away. What do you want? Dad asked, quietly this time. I want you to leave me alone, I said, with the calm clarity of someone who'd waited their whole life to say those words. All of you. I want you to stop treating me like an ATM, stop expecting me to sacrifice everything for Sabrina's convenience. And stop pretending we're a family. Mom tried to soften her voice. Vivien, we are family. No, I said, cutting her off. Family doesn't scream at you in public. Family doesn't assault you at a wedding. Family doesn't demand your home like it's owed to them. The air in the ballroom shifted. People looked away, embarrassed to be part of the audience. Now, some guests whispered and made their way toward the exit, others were glued in place, watching the unfolding tragedy. Then my phone buzzed again. I looked down. TMZ is calling. I raised my phone, letting my family read the message. Vivien, please, Sabrina whispered. Her voice had changed. It wasn't sharp or entitled, it was small, broken, desperate. This is my wedding day, don't ruin it. I'm not ruining anything, I replied. You ruined it when you slapped me in front of 200 people because I didn't cave to your demands. Derek stepped forward, panic rising in his voice. Vivien, please. What can we do to fix this? I stared at him for a long second. You can't fix this, Derek. But why? Because this isn't just one bad moment. This is who they are. Then I listed the names out loud. Judge Margaret Chen. David Rodriguez from the New York Times. Amanda Walsh, Reputation Management. Sabrina froze. Do you know what it means when Amanda Walsh calls offering her services pro bono? Reputation management in New York wasn't about PR, it was about saving what was left of your professional soul. My phone rang again. I showed them the caller ID, CNN, unknown line. The ballroom was unraveling faster than they could comprehend. Sabrina's hands trembled. Her makeup was streaked, her curls unraveling from their tight form. She wasn't the goddess in white anymore. She looked like a haunted version of herself. I'll apologize, she gasped. I'll do it publicly. I'll post. I'll go live. It's too late. But, Vivien, please, I'm not doing this for revenge, Sabrina. I'm doing this because I've finally realized I don't owe any of you anything. Not my time. Not my peace. Not my silence. I turned, heels clicking against the marble floor. Dad grabbed my arm. Wait. We can fix this. Family counseling. Mediation, whatever you want. I glanced down at his hand. Let go of me, Dad. He did. You made your choice tonight, I said. You chose her. Again. Just like you always have. I took a few steps toward the ballroom door, then stopped. You know what the funny part is? I asked, turning to face them one last time. If you had just asked, nicely, I might have helped you. I might have helped you find a new place. Helped with the down payment. Because that's what real family does. I looked around at the wilted flowers, the half-eaten cake, the guests rapidly disappearing, but instead, you demanded my home. You insulted me. You humiliated me. And then, you slapped me. I raised my glass and gave them a nod. So now, you get nothing. And with that, I walked outside, the October air hit like a second slap, sharp, cold, and oddly refreshing. I stood at the top of the Ritz-Carlton steps, the sound of Central Park traffic rushing in the background. Horns. Footsteps. The rhythmic hum of a city that didn't care what had just happened inside, but New York was about to care. A lot. I didn't leave right away. I just stood there, breathing. Watching the sky, the buildings, the life that moved on, unaware that a social bomb had been detonated upstairs. Then, my phone vibrated again, and again, and again, and buzz. 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 I finally looked, messages. Dozens. Then hundreds, group chats. Work contacts. Old friends. Journalists. Even former rivals, all of them saw what happened, all of them were reaching out. I began walking. The city helped me think, and I needed that right now. I passed Fifth Avenue boutiques, glowing shop fronts, yellow cabs, and tourists who had no idea I had just torched my entire bloodline's reputation. I called Riley. Vivien, what the hell just happened? She answered immediately. Your message blew up. Instagram is flooded. Did Sabrina actually hit you? She did. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, I replied. I think I'm finally free. Vivien, this is going to get messy. You know that, right? I do. You sure you want to go through with it? I stopped walking. For years, I've been the only one cleaning up their messes. Let them figure it out this time. I hung up and kept walking, 40 blocks from Midtown to my penthouse on the Upper West Side. By the time I reached my building, the messages had multiplied. My phone was a non-stop reel of calls, tags, mentions, and shares. Gossip blogs. Legal pages. Even a feminist lawyer from Brooklyn had made a reaction video praising me for standing up for myself. Luis, my doorman, looked worried. Miss Vivien, rough night? You could say that. He tilted his head. Whatever happened? I hope they deserved it. I gave him a tired smile. They did. The elevator ride felt strangely peaceful. My cheeks still burned from the slap. My makeup was smudged, and my hair, usually tight and professional, had loosened in strands. But my eyes, focused. Clear. I was no longer holding back. In my penthouse, I poured a glass of wine and sat in silence for a few minutes. It was mine. My couch. My windows. My skyline view, and no one could take that from me anymore. Then I scrolled through Instagram. Someone had filmed the slap. Of course they had. It was already making the rounds. The comments poured in. Who hits their sister at a wedding? She handled that like a queen. This is what family abuse looks like in real life. Why was everyone laughing though? Entitlement at its worst. Vivien, if you see this, proud of you. It wasn't just strangers commenting. There were names from my industry: judges, founders, business leaders, lawyers I'd battled in court. They weren't mocking me, they were supporting me. My assistant, Jenna, called. She was using her personal number. Vivien? I hate to bother you, but the office line is flooded. Reporters are calling me. CNN. Page 6. Even TMZ. What do they want? Statements. Are you pressing charges? Are you suing? They're asking about your firm. Even your dating life. Of course, I'll send a response, I said. Something simple. She waited. Right, Vivien Morrison is grateful for the outpouring of support. She's focusing on her clients and won't be making any further public statements regarding this private family matter. No mention of charges? Not yet. Let's keep that door open. After I hung up, I realized I hadn't eaten. I ordered Thai food and sat on the couch again. Finally in control. The story was no longer mine alone. It had become a spark for something bigger. People weren't just talking about a slap, they were talking about boundaries, about success, about family betrayal, and about how even the strongest among us have limits. The pad thai sat untouched for a while. I just wasn't hungry, not for food, anyway. I was devouring something else. Truth. My phone, still vibrating, was lit with new notifications. One message stopped me. Patricia Winters, the senior partner from the first law firm I'd ever worked at. We hadn't spoken in years. Vivien, I just found out what happened. I want you to know you have my full support. What they did to you was appalling. You didn't deserve that. I'm proud of how you stood up for yourself. Please call if you need anything. I stared at her words, and for the first time that night, I cried, not because I was hurt, but because someone who wasn't related to me had shown me more compassion in a single message than my entire family had in years. And just like that, it clicked. They hadn't betrayed me tonight, they had always been betraying me. My phone rang again. Judge Margaret Chen. I answered cautiously. Judge Chen? Vivien, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the court directory. No, not at all. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything at all, she replied. And that's the problem. I stood there and watched it unfold. You were a guest. No. I'm a judge. I've seen abuse in 100 forms. And what I saw tonight was abuse, emotional, financial, and finally physical. Her words stunned me. I never saw it that way. That's the thing about family abuse, she said. It doesn't always come with bruises. Sometimes it's disguised as expectations, guilt trips, silent treatments, and entitlement. But it's abuse all the same. I didn't know what to say. I've watched women with credentials, power, and pride crumble because their families convinced them they were selfish for having boundaries. My hand trembled slightly, but not from fear, from clarity. Thank you, I said softly. I needed to hear that. After the call, I sat on the floor, legs crossed, wine in hand, the city glowing outside my windows. All the moments came flooding back, when I aced the bar and no one showed up to celebrate, when I launched my firm and mom called it reckless. When I bought the penthouse and dad asked if I was sure I could handle it alone. When I offered to help pay Sabrina's rent years ago and she laughed, saying she didn't need charity. They hadn't just ignored my success, they'd resented it. Judge Chen's words echoed again. That was a pattern of abuse. Could I really call it that? They never hit me, until tonight. They never yelled, unless it was about how I wasn't doing enough for Sabrina, but they constantly, consistently, persistently tore me down, with every guilt trip. Every insult disguised as concern. Every request framed as a duty, and when I finally said no, they slapped me, literally, and the world watched. Maybe Judge Chen was right. This wasn't just a slap, this was the end of a toxic legacy, and the beginning of something else. It was nearing 2 a.m. I had muted notifications, shut off social apps, dimmed the lights, and started changing for bed. My body ached. But my mind? It was razor sharp. I was brushing my teeth when the intercom buzzed. I froze. The building was secure. No one got in unless they were allowed. I walked over to the monitor and stared at the small screen. Sabrina, still in her wedding dress and mascara. Streaming, face pale, hair undone, eyes, pleading, please, she whispered into the speaker, her voice nearly inaudible. I stood there, watching her on the screen. A bride, not glowing, but shattered. A sister, not apologizing, but begging. A woman who had orchestrated my humiliation hours ago now standing outside my door, alone. Broken and desperate. I hesitated. For a second, I actually felt something, not pity, not regret, just the faint ghost of what used to be sisterhood, the sleepovers, the birthday cakes, the silly fights over lipstick, the shared childhood that I had once thought would mean something in adulthood, but those memories weren't strong enough to silence the others. The look on her face when she slapped me, the laughter from her friends, the way she told me I deserved nothing and everything of mine should belong to her, the way she stood there with her arms crossed while people laughed at me, and I remembered. This wasn't her breaking point, this was her reaction to consequences, not guilt, not growth, just fear, and fear does not equal change. I reached for the switch under the monitor, and turned it off. The silence that followed was peaceful, not quiet, but peaceful, because it was mine, not shared. Not stolen. Not compromised, mine. The next morning, page 6 ran the story, lawyer slapped by sister at luxury wedding, family feud goes viral. There was a still image from the video, Sabrina mid-slap, my head recoiling, the crowd frozen. Behind us, the article quoted everything: the penthouse demands, the public humiliation, the line, selfish children don't deserve success. By lunch, hashtags were trending, hashtag Ritz wedding scandal, hashtag sister slap, hashtag stand with Vivien. What started as a family argument had turned into a national conversation. That afternoon, Sabrina's new mother-in-law cancelled their Christmas invitation. Derek's law firm announced an internal ethics investigation. My parents' exclusive country club quietly suspended their membership, their perfect image, shattered, but I hadn't even raised a hand. All I had done was tell the truth. A week had passed. 1 week since the wedding turned warzone. 7 days since Sabrina's palm connected with my cheek and changed the direction of our family name, and in that short time, everything fell apart. For them, Sabrina was fired from her boutique PR firm. Clients had pulled out after seeing the video. None of them wanted to be represented by someone who hit her sister in a wedding dress and called it drama. Her employer released a statement about core values and professional standards. Derek's firm launched a professional conduct inquiry. Several clients, particularly women, contacted HR expressing discomfort that he remained associated with someone who laughed at assault. Their honeymoon was cut short. Not because they wanted to return, because paparazzi found them. Reporters showed up at the resort in the Bahamas. Their hashtag Sabrina and Derek forever, was being used to share slap memes. Hotel guests whispered behind menus. They left early. Quietly. Humiliated. My parents didn't fare any better. Their neighbors? Cold. Their country club suspended their membership, pending review of recent behavior. Translation: we don't want your scandal here. Dad's business, he tried to keep it going, but referrals dried up. People didn't want to work with the guy who stood silent while his daughter got slapped at a wedding. Then Sabrina called, her voice cracked before she even said hello. Vivien, please. Help us. I said nothing. I lost my job. Derek might get suspended. People won't stop calling us. Commenting. Judging. I'm sorry. I really am. You meant to humiliate me, I said quietly. You meant to take my home. You meant to teach me a lesson. The only thing you didn't mean was to face consequences. I'll go public. I'll apologize. I'll tell everyone it was my fault. It was your fault. Silence, she tried again. You're my sister. Sisters don't hit each other for refusing to give away their life's work. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What can I do? You can stop calling. And I ended the call. They tried damage control. My parents reached out. Offered therapy, offered to rebuild the relationship. Talk it through. I didn't respond because you don't talk things through with people who only respect you after being exposed. Meanwhile, my world was thriving. My law firm became busier than ever. New clients specifically requested me because of how I handled the situation. You're the woman who wouldn't be bullied, one said. My sister tried the same thing, said another. Watching. You gave me courage. Even firms I had admired for years started reaching out. Would you like to guest speak? Would you consult on a piece about women and family dynamics in law? I hadn't just refused to be a victim. I had become a symbol of what happens when you choose truth over silence. At night, I'd stand by the window of my penthouse, the same one they tried to take, and look at the lights of the city. Each glow felt like a reminder, this view is yours, this life is yours, and no one, not even blood, has the right to guilt you into giving it away. 6 months passed, and just like the seasons, everything changed. The story had slowly faded from the trending lists, but the consequences lingered, quiet, sharp, permanent. Sabrina and Derek were divorced, not separated, not working on things. Divorced, the pressure crushed them. The online shame, the internal investigations, the cancelled holiday invites, it all became too much. Love built on entitlement doesn't survive a public unraveling. She moved back in with our parents. They, too, were navigating social exile. Events they once hosted were now members only. Invitations disappeared. Business prospects dried up. The Morrison name didn't carry weight anymore, unless it was tied to a scandal headline. I was still in my penthouse, the one they tried to take, the one they said I didn't need. Now, it felt more like a fortress than ever. I turned one extra bedroom into a guest suite, for friends who visited from out of town. The other? A home office, where I worked late nights defending women going through the exact same family manipulation I had finally broken free from. I thought about Sabrina sometimes, not with hatred, with curiosity. How did she grow into someone who believed she was owed everything I had worked for? How did we grow up in the same house but learn such different lessons about love, loyalty, and limits? And more than anything, when did she stop seeing me as a sister, and start seeing me as competition? But I never answered her calls again, and I never returned home for family dinners. Because they weren't my family anymore, they were people I shared blood with, nothing more. Family means everything, someone once said to me. I used to believe that, blindly, until I realized. Family is who lifts you, not who uses you. It's not people who expect you to shrink so they can shine. It's not people who demand your sacrifice but never offer support, and it's definitely not people who slap you in a ballroom and expect a hug later. I made peace with it, the loss, the silence, the grief over the family I wished I had, because once I stopped mourning who they pretended to be, I could finally embrace who I truly was. Strong, successful, not selfish, just done being exploited. 1 year after the slap, I stood barefoot in my penthouse kitchen, the morning sun spilling across marble countertops. A fresh French press brewed beside me, and the silence was golden, not the tense kind, but the healing kind. No one was calling me selfish. No one was asking me to give anything up. No one was demanding that I shrink myself to make them feel bigger. The world outside hadn't stopped, but mine had found a rhythm. A confident rhythm of boundaries, clarity, and freedom. I hadn't heard from Sabrina since the last time she cried into the phone, begging me to help salvage the image she'd shattered herself. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. Derek had gone. My parents, they'd tried small apologies, quiet, guilt-laced messages about healing and time. But I didn't know them healing, and they didn't deserve time. The legal world still talked about what happened, not with scandalous gossip, but with respect. I became known as the woman who stood her ground, the lawyer who didn't bend, the daughter who drew the line and dared them to cross it, and when they did, she didn't flinch, she let the truth burn them. People asked me, was it worth it? Losing your sister, losing your parents, losing your entire family. Here's what they don't understand, I didn't lose them. I let them go. There's a difference. The penthouse they once called excessive, now full of people who actually love me, mentors, friends, former colleagues, clients turned companions. The space Sabrina said I didn't need? Now filled with laughter, wine nights, sleepovers, late-night legal strategy calls, and quiet mornings like this one. And that brings us back to the question I asked in the beginning, what happens when the family disappointment finally fights back? Here's the answer, she wins, not by crushing them, not by destroying everything, but by standing in the wreckage they created, and refusing to live in it, she wins by telling the truth. By saying no, by showing the world, you don't get to treat me like this anymore. And if this story meant something to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.